Welcome to Therapist Take. We are going to talk about in this episode what we are thinking and feeling while you're talking to us, so don't go anywhere. Hello, Carrie.
Hello, Josh.
Trying to do it a little different this time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were having the dandiest time.
We were.
Just,
I know. I think
yeah.
my eyes are still a little bit.
How do you feel about
cracking up.
I wonder how everybody else would feel about just Hannah just hitting record at some point in our conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they do on Armchair Experts, Dax Shepard.
Oh, yeah.
Like you just when you start their podcast, you just kind of start. It kind of fades into hearing them chat and stuff. I don't know.
I don't know.
We just have to know it's happening, so we're not saying anything dumb
that we can't take back.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah. So after our episode with Kelly Roberts, we decided to do another lighthearted episode, which we did last week, which was on the 5 things that therapists wished people knew about us, right? Mm-hmm. And we got, again, more good responses, and someone actually had commented on our live broadcast on YouTube. Saying they really liked that episode and would love to see more episodes like that. And so this is actually a viewer-inspired topic. This is a topic straight from that comment, so you can go read the comment and see that we are pulling directly from that and talking about what's going on for us as therapists, like what are our internal processes. Right. As we are, listening to people tell their stories and going through, walking them through their journey. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of neat. Yeah. I thought it was a great idea by the person who suggested that. So before we start, though, just want to remind everybody, if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel, like the video, it really helps. And if you're listening to this on any of the podcast platforms, please just stop what you're doing for just a minute and go back and give us a 5-star review. And then also, don't forget to check out the show notes in the description of the video, because that's where we will put a lot of different links. So we're going to talk about 5 different kind of internal processes that are happening with us as therapists as we visit with you, the client. Mm-hmm. We are letting you see how the sausage is made, right? So some people may or may not like that. Okay, so let's first one. Okay, so the first thing that we do, and this is probably, and I think we put this number 1 because it's probably the most constant thing that's happening. And it really kind of is an umbrella to the other things, is that throughout the course of a single session, we are repetitively hypothesizing, testing that hypothesis, and then rehypothesizing, and then testing and rehypothesizing, and testing and rehypothesizing, right? And it's not like we're doing, it's not like we're aware of it to the degree it's happening. I think we're aware of it, that. You know what I mean? Right, we're aware that this is a process, and there are times when I'm literally thinking, what dots am I needing to help connect here, right? Right. And then I test it, But it actually is happening a lot throughout the course of a session. And I think it kind of really speaks to the power of the brain to do that, and also be able to hear what they're saying and do this at the same time.
Right.
So.
Right. But I also think it's one of I think it's one of the absolute foundational pieces of graduate school, right? Sure. Helping people learn what. I don't know. Did you know the word hypothesis before college?
I think so. I think we might have done a little bit of that.
Scientific method-y
maybe
stuff.
Maybe in physics and high school.
In biology or something.
Yeah.
But I feel like I didn't use it, or it didn't.
Application.
Right. Yeah. And then so I think it's really foundational to, our training, especially in graduate school, right? Mm-hmm. That here are all of these models around human behavior and relationships. Mm-hmm. Now take all these ideas and create some hypotheses around it, right?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, the first time I heard of it used in the context of therapy was in grad school, and it really kind of was, kind of like an aha moment for me. It's like, hey, we are doing that. I'm like, yeah, that is yeah, I just didn't think of hypothesizing outside of research methods, right? And
Right.
experimental psych
Right.
and things like that,
Right.
where you're using it scientifically, but it is part of our analytical
Yes.
process,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
which is kind of cool in a way, because it's like
It
it
is.
is something we get to use. Like when if you think like when you're a kid and you're learning in high school physics, or your first year of college or something, and you're learning about hypothesizing, and you're like, I'm never going to use this, right? But we actually do when we're problem solving.
All the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's something that we're doing a lot. And there's also this thing that kind of falls in that, where we focus on process over content.
Right.
And I used to not, and I don't talk about this with every client, but I used to not talk about it at all, because it's like, oh, I don't want to reveal my tricks. You know what I mean? But I actually talk about it with some clients to help them, especially couples that are learning to communicate.
Yes.
And I will often, cut them off on their stories and stuff like that, because I'll tell them, I was like, the content that you're telling me is important,
Right.
especially in the beginning, to
Right.
kind of get the lay of the land. But eventually, I'm seeing patterns now, and so I don't have to hear, all the aspects of these stories.
Right.
Because even while you're telling those stories, I'm paying attention to processes that are happening between you,
Right.
as well as our processes
In the
that are happening
room.
in this room, as we're going through this process of hypothesizing, testing, and rehypothesizing.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so I also think that's probably why we're able to be better controlled emotionally when it comes to emotional reactions. Like, people can tell us a lot of wild things, and we can stay pretty even keeled about it, because it's not like we're not into the story, but we're into the story in a very different way.
Right. Right. Yeah, we're listening. We're listening to the content.
Absolutely.
But we're listening.
And it is important.
And it is important.
Right.
But we're definitely drawing at least I'm drawing diagrams in my head of this person steps in pursuit, this person protects by distance, and you're
Right.
listening for that, right?
And where did that come from? And where did they learn that?
Right. Is
And-
this new?
right?
Yes.
And sometimes I'll go down like, is there an evolutionary purpose to this
Absolutely.
type of behavior?
Sure.
Is there, how does this fit with the survivor brain? And
Right.
how does it fit with the part of the brain that makes us human and allows us to be vulnerable, and and things like that. And so we really don't have time to get super emotionally reactive, but we
Right.
are going to talk about that in a minute
Yeah.
as well. So
Yeah. And these hypotheses can be large, right? Like you just said, like, how is this part of the survivor brain? And they can be very small, right? Like,
yeah,
I mean, for example, like, I'm wondering what's happening for that person right now as the other person
Yeah.
says that, right?
yeah,
So we're saying this because there's a lot of
right.
ideas and testing going on.
Right, and the other kind of wild thing we have to do too is we might have 3 or 4 hypotheses going on at one
Same
time. We
time.
have to decide in like a moment's time
Yeah.
which one we're going to go with through our line of questioning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like are we going to go to the past here? Are we going to go into survival?
Right.
Are we going to tackle a brain thing? Or are we going to go to
Right.
something
Body, somatic
somatic,
experience.
right?
Yeah.
Or as I think Whitney talks about what she call those, the 3. It's for that self-care. The 3 pathways of self-care.
Oh, channels.
3
right?
channels, right? Yeah.
Self-awareness.
Right.
3 channels of
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness, right?
Yeah, which we did a podcast on that too.
Yeah, it's a very good episode.
Episode 10. I remember it.
Good. It's a
Episode
very
10.
good. It's a very
good
helpful
one.
episode. Yeah.
So let's go to the second one.
Okay.
All right. Something that I don't think a lot of people question this,
Okay.
but we are genuinely compassionate.
Yeah.
So if you're experiencing compassion from your therapist, then good. It is their job to do that, but it shouldn't come difficult
I know.
for them, in my opinion. But there's also a genuine curiosity.
Yes.
So if you're experiencing your therapist being very curious, again, it is part of our training on how to do that, but there are some things you can't teach somebody, and that's probably the thing. And and our professors don't really have to, because this is the part that that makes people want to become a therapist, right? And so the second thing being, that we are genuinely curious and compassionate.
Yeah. 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 And I think that even higher ordered, right, more skill is the ability to be curious and compassionate at the same time.
Right.
And that sounds okay, but think about someone telling you some really hard things.
Yeah.
Right? Think about how even hearing people, sabotage their own lives, right?
Yeah.
And to be able to extend curiosity and compassion at the same time.
Yeah. I'm going to put you on the spot just for a second. Yeah.
Okay.
You're going to love this.
Good.
How would you define compassion? Like, what's your kind of
I think
Carrie
I think of
definition?
that. Well, I mean, the first thing is just that Carl Rogers unconditional positive regard,
Okay.
right? And so the ability to just in general inhabit a space, right? Of I'm going to take people at their word, right? And the compassion of how can I even take it back to it? They're just human beings trying their
Right,
best, right? That's what I think of when you put me on the spot.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
even
you-
quoted Carl Rogers.
Well, that's an easy
I'm like,
one.
I'd be like, Daffy Duck.
No,
said-
Carl Rogers' unconditional positive regard.
Well, yeah, but I don't think
Yeah.
I would have just pulled that out of my head like that.
Oh,
I mean,
it's foundational.
maybe I should have.
Go read Carl Rogers when we leave here.
For me, compassion is really a combination, a blend of sympathy and empathy for somebody. So sympathy being, I can feel, I hurt with you, or I feel that feeling with you, and empathy being, empathy. When you're empathizing with somebody, you don't necessarily have to feel a lot of sympathy to empathize, because it's more about trying to understand the feeling. So you have to feel something for sure to do that. So a lot of people talk about putting yourself in the shoes of the other person, right? So I'm trying to comprehend it, understand it. And I think but having a healthy combination of feeling it with them and understanding it, a really good balance of that is what I would say is what creates compassion. Like I feel it in a, like, as you said, like that positive regard, like, oh my, like, and then, but that's where the curiosity then comes in. It's like, tell me more.
Right.
Help me understand.
I want to hear more. Right.
And it's like the emotions and the pain that I'm experiencing from you is not pushing me away.
Right.
It's drawing me
towards.
in. Right. And so that's how I've always kind of
because I think
it.
even the body positioning of being curious is that, like, putting your hand on your fist, right? Leaning forward. But I feel like compassion is the same thing, right? Is this drawing towards leaning in, right? This, thinking about when you see someone that you care about hurting, like you find yourself physically, right, being drawn to them. I think that's what this looks like, right? Is being in it with your clients.
It's really kind of fun to watch. I mean, for therapists, I think I find it fun to watch other therapists.
Oh,
right?
yeah. For sure.
So, like, is to see their processes happening, and it's really like how it manifests physically in their body.
Oh gosh, yeah.
We're going to talk about. Let's say I want to save that for this next one. So
save it.
let's just get into the next one.
Okay, the next one. All right.
The third thing that
Is what you're going for.
right is the third thing that is going on for us is that we are paying attention to body language.
Yes.
Very much so. In fact, if you really want to get your therapist's attention, then shift or do so, or blink, and they'll be like, what was that about, right? So we are definitely paying attention to body language.
What is the Gottman research that, at least between couples, 70% of communication is nonverbal?
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So it's that whole idea, again, back to the core theory of marriage and family therapists. You can't not communicate.
Right.
Right. So when people's words say something, but their body language is maybe contradictory.
Right.
Wow, that's volumes, right?
Sure. Right. So, like, if someone is, leans back and crosses their arms,
Sure.
and you're like, what's, are you open to hear what I have to say? They're like, yeah, I'm open.
I'm leaning back with my arms crossed, my head turned.
Right.
I'm open.
Your body's saying you're.
And listen, this
not.
isn't, I know that I had a client one time that was like, you're acting different today. My back was hurting. So I was wiggling a lot.
noticed on
Yeah,
you?
she noticed.
Oh,
Right. And my
yeah,
back was hurting, so I was wiggling
yeah,
because I'd been sitting for hours, and that's when my back starts to slowly
right,
disintegrate, right? So I know it does go both ways, but
right,
I mean, as a therapist, and I do think that this one and the last one that we're going to talk about today are something that I do. I know the research that beginning therapists are just as effective overall, sometimes more effective than seasoned therapists. I don't not agree. I think that's true. But one of the things I'm grateful for about being a little more seasoned is that I think I pick up on body language, and I think I can hypothesize it, and I think I know how to bring it into the session more seamlessly, right?
right, yeah,
And
I
so,
agree.
even if it's something as small as, it seems like something shifted
Yeah,
with you right there,
right,
right?
yeah. So, a funny story I like to tell and why I think is, telehealth sessions they have their place. I'm glad that they exist. I'm glad we're able to
Sure.
do that to reach people in locations that, that where they can't be here,
Yeah.
or something come up and they can do their session, but I can't get there on
Right.
time, right? And
Right.
telehealth has been great for that. And ever since the pandemic, everybody basically
Has that option.
right, exactly. But a funny story I tell sometimes is I remember working with a guy. There's a couple different ones actually, but this one was in trying to read body language, right? And it changes that a little bit because we
Very
only have this little
much.
tiny
Yeah.
window we're looking in, which is our screen, which is why I have that big TV in my office when I
Yeah.
do it, so I can try to bring people a little bit more to life when I'm doing telehealth. And I am, uh, you know, doing kind of my analytical thing. My therapist voice. I'm letting it come out. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go listen to the other episode.
Other
We talked about the
episode.
therapist voice, and I feel like I'm really connecting some dots, and I'm really nailing it because I'm paying attention to his body language, and he's got this look on his face where and if you're listening to this, it's kind of like, where he's kind of looking up and out, kind of like something is really resonating with him. So it's kind of like, and he's like, it's like, oh, I'm really
Right.
getting
He's
through to this
really
guy. I'm
processing.
like,
Yeah.
I'm hitting the nail on the head right here, and he's continuing. It's like he's even staring harder up and out like that. His mouth opens, and and then all of a sudden he holds his finger up like to tell me, hold on a second, and he goes, and then he does say, hey, hold on a second. My kids are doing something. And so the whole time he was looking out the window. I'm like, I am really nailing it.
Yeah.
And
You're
he is
feeling
looking
so
out the window,
good.
because his kids
Oh.
are doing something they shouldn't have done. And I don't even know if he heard me.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Josh.
Yeah.
I know.
Thank you, Carrie.
I know. But it is, I tell my telehealth clients that I'm like, I don't have my whole data set here. I don't get to see your
Right.
neck get change colors as well. I don't get to
Right,
watch
right,
your
right.
chest rise and fall with your
Yeah.
breath. I don't get to watch what your foot is doing. Right.
Yeah.
And so I said, I'm going to have to ask even more things.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So kind of to come back around to what I was saying earlier about therapists doing this. Fun for me to watch therapists and their body language too, because you can see like the internal processes kind of manifesting themselves physically. Um, I needed a pipe or something like Freud, right? Like you have like your glasses,
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
so like you can take your glasses off when you're
And
it's
lean
like,
forward.
and so
Yeah.
if you really think about that for a
Sets the
second, like
stage.
when we're getting curious, right, and you might see your therapist really lean in,
You do that though,
right?
Josh.
I lean in a lot,
Yeah, I
right?
know.
And then when they go into like hypothesizing mode, right?
Yes.
They might
Lean
lean
back.
back,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm in it, and but I need to take a break for a second,
Sure.
and then my eyes go up, and we talk about our old professor Glade Topham that puts his finger on his lips,
Yeah,
and
he
he
did.
starts,
He'd look up yeah.
and
Was it left or right that he would look? Because I know where
yeah.
you look does tell
But
a
I
little
could
bit.
swear I've seen you take the earpiece of your glasses and to your mouth. Is
I
that not
don't
something
think I
you
do that. I don't think I put them in my
Maybe
mouth.
it's somebody else,
have
but
to-
you can imagine people do that, right?
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
that's what I'm saying. I need a pipe where I'm like, when I go out of it, where I'm like,
Yeah,
it's like,
you sending your signal
right.
of this
But you
or
can
that.
see it happening in the therapist. That
I
leaning
can tell
forward
when
and
you're doing
leaning
it,
back,
right?
and
I can.
right.
You shift. You put your elbow on your knee. Yeah, I mean.
But you don't think you move a lot?
Oh
when
yeah,
you're-
well for sure, especially now that my back
Well,
hurts all the time.
But no, I'm talking about in the.
No, yes, I do lean forward when I'm also wanting to
Yeah.
bring up the intensity or
Right.
get even close when someone's hurting.
Do you ever do the, like, I don't think guys do this as much because how our hips are, but do you ever do the thing where you like put your hips together and kind of shift over and you're like sitting on one hip?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And leaning,
Yeah. 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 Sure.
Okay, I just don't know.
Yeah. No, I do. I think that, and
I mean, I got the earpiece wrong. So.
you got the earpiece wrong, but yeah,
Right.
I sit on my hips and stuff and I shift.
I think you're right though about the earpiece because I think I would have been like,
Ew,
gross. Don't do that.
Yeah, it is gross. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna do that. For lots of reasons, right? But one of my other body language things that I like that my clients bring up is I always have pillows on my couch. Because I do have I love pillows. I
Yeah.
have too many. I own too many pillows. And the clients that will put the pillows between them when they're doing couples
yeah.
therapy on the couch, right? The couples that use the pillows to get some sensory things. I mean, they're pretty, but they're there for that reason
So
too.
I have a good question for you then. What's your favorite body language thing your clients do? Like, what's your favorite one that kind of just gives you like warm fuzzies of like they feel safe here?
When they curl up.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
Well, they put their feet on the couch,
Yeah.
right? I just don't want to tell them that, clients before them also have their feet up there.
Well, I think it goes
Break
without
out the
saying.
Lysol.
No, it's fabric, right? Everything's
Sure.
good. Sure. No, I love the ones that grab a blanket, the ones that put their
Oh,
feet
yeah.
up. Right. I want you to be comfortable. The ones that say, it's comfortable here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My absolute favorite one though is I only had one person who would do this regularly and did it forever, just really through the pain of it all. He would come in and lay down.
Yeah.
And I just found that very heartwarming. I'm like, lay down. I was like, you can take a nap if you want. Like if that's what you need today, then by all means. Like, and he would it's just like it was a movie or something.
Yeah.
The only difference is I'm not sitting by his head. Right?
Behind his head,
Right.
writing down.
Right.
Yeah.
I was laying down on the other. So.
You can buy two couches,
Yeah.
so one for you, one for your client. Yeah. Okay.
All right, we need to move on.
Okay.
Okay, so that was attention to body language. The fourth one is, as therapists, we are paying attention to the differences that make a difference, which kind of, if this is the first time you're hearing that might make your head cock a little bit, which, by the way,
Is
means
a difference.
is a
that's
difference. It
making
makes a difference. That's exactly what it would be, right? So I'll let Carrie start with on what that means.
Well, I
So.
think that it is kind of like that, right? Where it's
Right.
just something that stands out, right? And so, it's always, I don't know about you, Josh, I'm going to ask you this, but isn't it surprising sometimes when people come back and they'll say, I'll never forget when you said, or when
Yeah.
you reflected back to me, right? Those are indicators, right? Those
Yeah.
statements are indicators of differences that made a
Yeah.
difference, right?
Yeah, no question, right? You ever have it happen and you're like, really, that's the thing?
Almost
Like,
always. Almost always it's, oh, that? Yeah. And of course, it's never, I don't know that it's often exactly how I remember saying it,
Yeah.
but that doesn't matter, right?
Right.
But yeah, it is surprising, right? And I just always think that the brain will grab onto what it needs when it needs it, right?
Right.
And so sometimes it's things you say several times, but then finally it's the right puzzle piece that fits, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's really what we're hoping to do
Yes,
that, right?
right.
And the way I explain it to clients is like, you can do things differently, and sometimes those things that you do differently helps.
Yeah.
And so you might have somebody come in and say like I'm different, like I know it, and people have commented on it, right? And but my partner doesn't really see it.
Yes.
And so usually what I talk to them about as a possibility, but sometimes I think it's more than a possibility. I think it's probably what's happening, is that they have made changes and they are bettering their lives and improving their lives. But to really make a difference, to your surrounding world, right? And to me, this is what is how you can generate confidence that you've made lasting change, is that sometimes you're not different enough.
That's true.
And so if you want to be the difference that makes a difference, you have to be different enough
Yeah.
to where it really like changes the world around you, and it's not really changing anybody per se. It's really just operationally
Yeah.
changes. Like
Yeah.
if you put a new gear in a system, right, and all the other gears are used to rotating one way. If you think of kind of like a conveyor belt wrapped around certain gears, right, then you put another gear in there, and you gotta figure out how you're gonna where you're gonna wrap that conveyor belt.
Right.
And the other gears might have to go the other way now, so that
Can work.
right.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that resonates with people the most is when you talk about a kid coming into the family, and they're like, everybody says it changes everything, right?
Everything.
And what I always say is like you're right 100%, but it really just changes one thing. You have to be an expert planner now, but that is so different.
Yes, it is.
Than
It's a
how I've
different
ever
operating.
operated, and so it does change operationally everything now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
I know. And I really appreciate that you're saying sometimes it has to be different enough. I think some of the language you could also use around that is the therapeutic dose. Right? We just have to find the dose that makes the difference, right? Whether that's an actual medication, right?
Right.
That's too low, we need to go up. It can even be about sleep, right? Well, I'm getting more sleep, but I don't feel any better. Well, how much more? 30 minutes more. Okay, that's not enough, right? Or it can be therapy. How much do you need to come to therapy? How often do you need couples?
Right.
How often do you need individual, right? It can be journaling, right? Journaling once a year versus journaling every other day, right? So we're listening for what difference will make a difference. What dosage of
Right.
these things is actually going to have the effect.
Exactly. And don't you think a lot of it, we talk about the difference in first and second order change, and I know that's
Yes.
therapist speak for a lot of people listening to this, but a kind of a simplistic way, it really doesn't capture it completely, but a simplistic way to think of it is the difference between behavioral changes, but you really, mentally or kind of your worldview hasn't really supported it.
Right.
It's
Right.
like I need to try this,
I'm gonna
but I
change what I do.
don't really believe in it yet.
Right,
Where
right.
a second order change would be I believe it.
Changing the way that you think
Right.
about it,
Yeah.
right? And then the third order change is the belief worldview, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but that's where usually the difference that makes a difference, you're seeing second and third order
That's right.
changes.
Not as much first,
Right.
right?
But everybody tries the first order stuff
And
first,
and I think
right?
they're
mean,
ingredients that all go together.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think first order is like leaving no stone unturned. Right. Before I do the hard thing, you gotta make sure none of the easy stuff. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Why
Right?
wouldn't you?
Right.
Yeah, that's human.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're really paying attention. That probably should have been much higher on our list.
Well, these aren't in rank order.
Well, I did move 5. 5 was in the 4 spot.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because I was like,
We don't think linearly, Josh.
I know,
Okay.
but order of importance.
Some degree.
Yeah. So the fifth one, and I think the reason why I put this fifth is because I think it's a good one to end on.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I think this might be a little surprising to some people, and some people it won't be. But that we're also dealing with our own emotions in that room too, and our own feelings.
Sure.
And I think in the last episode I asked you, like, you ever get angry for your client?
Oh, yeah.
But that's not really a therapeutic intervention we're taught. Like,
No, I'm laughing so much because I'm imagining it being taught to us in
Yeah.
graduate school.
there's definitely some professors that could teach it, I'm sure.
Right, but they didn't.
Right, appropriately so. But
Is it though? Because I do
Well-
think I think somatic experiencing training, which we did not get,
right,
right, which was not part of our,
sure.
the
Can
perspective
you
of
define
our.
that for?
Yeah, somatic experiencing is the idea that you're noticing what signals your body
Right.
is giving off in the moment, right? And you learn about how to incorporate those experiences into the room, right? And obviously the training is about helping clients identify, their body messages, but it's also about helping the therapist notice what's happening with them in the presence of their clients and how to bring that into the room,
Yeah.
right?
Now, I do think I got a little bit of that. I mean, because when I say very little, but it was enough to really, it was a game changer for
To make
me.
an impact, yeah.
Because to your point on that, like, no, we don't have I mean, we don't have in our training, we don't have our professors telling us, hey, you need to get mad in there, right? I mean, they don't do that, right? You need to feel anxious right now, But what I would say they would at least agree with is that you have to learn to use your
Yes.
own emotional experiences therapeutically,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Especially if they're getting in the way.
Yes, that's true.
Right, and so we have many consultations with people that are and we pick up on, we call it
Yep.
self a therapist. We pick up something going
Sorry.
on with the therapist, and,
Yep.
and we're like, what's happening
What's
for you
happening?
during this? And the therapist will say it. I said, maybe you should talk to them about
What's
your
going on?
emotional experience with all this, right?
Yeah.
And what happened with me in grad school is that, of course, you're watching all these amazing therapists through the one-way mirrors when you first start out training, or at least in our program, that's how it was. And of course, you were one of those, right? Because you were ahead of me, because you're older.
Thanks, Josh.
We actually graduated the same year in high school, so didn't we? 98.
Yeah.
Sorry, are we not supposed to say that?
No, I think it's a fact that's easy to find out. I don't think I'm hiding anything.
Yeah.
You aren't
I
either.
feel like you're more secure than that. I can't say your age.
You can say my age.
I know.
Yeah.
I had, I digress. on
Squirrel.
that.
Yeah, okay.
But I want to talk about that.
Okay, good.
This whole cultural thing of not being able to talk about women's ages. I'm like, it is not, you are worth being the age you are.
Of course. Yeah.
You can be, so
Yeah.
I refuse to not ask people.
I
their age.
agree. I agree.
Okay, so anyways,
Okay.
I digress.
Okay.
Back to my story.
Okay, back to the
We're back.
original story.
And we're back. Okay, so the original story. So I was, as you can imagine, when all this, power is kind of given over to this kid that is, I was 23 years old or 24 years old when I first saw my first client, and so my anxiety, I was anxious, right, as most people are,
Yeah.
but mine was starting to get in the way. And at like halfway through session or something, it's like I start to get nervous about, am I asking the right questions? And I had a professor in one of our meetings, or we would always
Consultations.
in the program we went through, we would, at 30 minutes into session, we would take what we called a break so we can consult with our supervisors. We'd give our clients a break question to think about. And it was in one of those little brief breaks, and I can't remember which supervisor it was, that said, when you're getting anxious, like if you can pay attention, if you can catch it when you're getting anxious, and instead of being afraid of it, lean into it. Like maybe your anxiety is telling you there's an opportunity here for you. And that was 100% game changer for me.
Yeah.
Where I started paying attention to what I was feeling. And then I was like, then I'd start looking for the opportunity and like, what am I missing here? Instead of being afraid of like, oh my gosh, I'm getting anxious and they're going to see me being anxious and they're going to think I'm a bad therapist.
Right.
And things like that. And I think that, like I said, it's the only time I remember kind of a somatic-esque type thing happening.
Really, yeah.
I do think like for therapists that are working with people and you're feeling something, you got to figure out how to use that therapeutically, because then otherwise it becomes about you, right? Or it can be.
Right, and that's
can
not the
come
point
about
of
you, right?
this, right? It is, you need to use it therapeutically, but I also think that one of the ways that you can use your own emotions is also when you miss something, right? Because we've missed things, or we've made mistakes, or we've, not gone down in our hypotheses. We didn't go down the right one, and clients will come back and say, well, why didn't you say this? Or, you heard me say that. What?
Right.
And you use, your feelings of anxiety or fear, right? Just to go, I'm feeling terrible.
Right.
Right. I missed that. I made a mistake. I don't know enough about that.
Yeah.
Right. And bringing that into the room. And that is it feels a very vulnerable experience for therapists, but man, I have seen it work very, very powerfully in the room with clients, right?
Yeah, I was just talking to one of our therapists the other day about an experience I had where, you know the stroke and kick method, right?
Of course.
It's a technique that we learn, and it sounds very violent, actually, when you think about it. But it's just basically, if you think of it, it's like you're kind of, it's caressing, being gentle, through like sympathy and empathy and things like that. And then you gotta shove, you gotta kick, you gotta kind of challenge them a little bit. And I think I kicked too hard, and I remember when that session ended, like I did not feel good about it, and it was intentional.
Yeah.
But it just worked out better in my head, type thing,
Yeah.
So when that person came back, we talked about it,
Oh, good.
Yeah, we talked about it. I said, yeah, I didn't feel good about it, and I wanted you to know that I may have pushed too hard right there, and it was upsetting, but from my experience, most he came back.
He did,
Right. Most clients are forgiving about it. But I think it's also a great opportunity for a therapist to model, what it means to be human.
That's right.
To model honesty and humility and apology.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. We ask our clients to pursue relentless honesty. Right. We can do it too.
Yeah. Which ultimately is vulnerability.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, those are the only 5 things that happen to us.
All therapists are doing. The rest of the time, they're just,
Right. They just go, after they get through their emotions, they go back to hypothesizing.
They just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And that very, very
nothing
strict
else
fashion.
happens.
No. Yeah. I know.
Yeah. Do you ever get like a stomach cramp or something, or your stomach's growling and you're like, oh, did they hear that?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And the answer is yes.
The answer is yes. Everybody heard it. Yeah.
But we're going to ignore that.
Right. We'll bring in our emotions, but not our stomach growling.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if anybody that has ideas or thoughts on episodes that you would like to, or topics you'd like to hear us talk about, it can be stuff specifically related to mental health. It can be something completely nuanced, and if there's something that you want to know more about us and our processes, you can always ask. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean we'll always deliver, but we might.
Yeah.
We did this time.
We did. Yeah.
We really delivered. Well, we appreciate everybody being here. Don't forget, subscribe to our channel and follow us. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you go and also follow us on our podcast. And it doesn't hurt to listen to us more than once.
No,
all right? Yeah.
Sure.
You watch us once and listen to us once. It's all good.
Right.
And make sure you give us those reviews if you don't mind. We really appreciate it. It helps the algorithms, which helps get our content out to more people. So, all right. Well, we appreciate it, and we will see you back next time.